of the goodness of God.
皆さんこんにちは。グレースポイント教会のオンライン礼拝へようこそ。グレースポイントシアトル教会のジーンと申します。ところで皆さんは雨は好きですか？イチロー選手もいたシアトルマリナーズで有名なシアトルに住んでいるんですけども、そのシアトルも最近はどっと寒くなって雨も多くなってきました。毎年10月の最後らへんから雨の日が多くなって、ここからはずっともう半年ぐらいは雨季となります。そちらではどうですか？皆さんが住んでいるところでは最近どんな天気なのかチャットボックスでぜひ教えてください。さて、今日もまた一緒にゴスペルシリーズの続きのメッセージを聞いていこうと思います。前回も言いましたが、ゴスペルの直訳は福音、またはいい知らせです。そしてこのゴスペルの頭文字を一つずつ取ってテーマごとにお話ししていきました。G は英語で God、日本語では神様です。OS は英語で Our Sin、日本語では私たちの罪を示します。そして P は Payment、日本語では支払いです。一言で言えば、神は私たちを愛してくださいます。神様は私たち一人一人の罪を許してくれるほど私たちを愛しているのです。その愛は神様の一人子イエスが私たちの罪のために十字架で死んでくださったことでよくわかります。これこそがゴスペル、または福音とも言います。今週はいい、英語では everyone、日本語ではみんなについてジョナサン牧師はお話ししていきます。このいい知らせは神様からの無条件の愛と許しは誰のためなのかをお話しします。今日の聖書箇所はマタイの福音書20章1から16節です。一緒に読んでいきましょう。天の御国は自分のブドウ園で働く労務者を雇いに朝早く出かけた主人のようなものです。彼は労務者たちと一日一デナリの約束ができると彼らをブドウ園にやった。それから9時頃にかけてみると別の人たちが市場に立っており何もしないでいた。そこで彼はその人たちに言った。 あなた方もブドウ園に行きなさい。相当のものをあげるから。彼らは出て行った。それからまた12時ごろと3時ごろに出かけて行って同じようにした。また5時ごろ出かけてみると別の人たちが立っていたので彼らに言った。なぜ一日中の仕事もしないでここにいるのですか？彼らは言った。誰も雇ってくれなかったからです。彼は言った。あなた方もブドウ園に行きなさい。こうして夕方になったので、ブドウ園の主人は監督に言った。労務者たちを呼んで、最後に来た者たちから順に最初に来た者たちにまで賃金を払ってやりなさい。そこで5時ごろに雇われた者たちが来て、それぞれ1デナリずつもらった。最初の者たちがもらいに来てもっと多くもらえるだろうと思ったが、彼らもやはり一人1デナリずつであった。そこで彼らはそれを受け取ると主人に文句をつけていった。この最後の連中は1時間しか働かなかったのに、あなたは私たちと同じにしました。私たちは一日中ロークと焼けるような暑さを辛抱したのです。しかし彼はその一人に答えて言った。私はあなたに何も不当なことはしていない。あなたは私と1デナリの約束をしたではありませんか。自分の分を取って帰りなさい。ただ私としてはこの最後の人にもあなたと同じだけあげたいのです。自分のものを自分の思うようにしてはいけないという法がありますか？それとも私が気前がいいのであなたの目には妬ましく思われるのですか？このように後のものが先になり、先のものが後になるものです。
And today we're going to cover E for everyone. 2 weeks ago, it was the message on payment or paying for our sins. And John 3:16 spells it out. For God so loved the world. God's love is not limited kind of love, but God so loved the world in this kind of way that He gave His only Son, that whoever believes in Him should not perish but have eternal life. And this kind of love is so different from what we would typically find in this world, isn't it? I mean, this is so radically different. Because in this world, you and I, we're living in the midst of love that is proportional to how lovable you and I are or other people are. It's a love that is earned by hard work, good performance, like you get straight A's and you get a little more love from your parents, right? Isn't that the case? Well, for some parents, it's like, I love you no matter what, but I'll love you more if you bring home straight A's, right? The kind of love that we have in the gospel is so much different than that. And as I thought about what would be a fitting passage to cover, thought about this story that Jesus tells in Matthew chapter 20, verses 1 and onward. And so let's go ahead and get started with this. Jesus is telling this story that describes what the kingdom of heaven is like. A kingdom where the king, the heavenly Father, who is reigning as king, in other words, what God's character is like, and what the people of God should also embody as well. And so let's take a look at this. For the kingdom of heaven is like a master of a house who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for a denarius a day, that's the standard wage for 1 day's work is 1 denarius, he sent them into his vineyard. And going out about the 3rd hour, and he saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and he said to them, you go into the vineyard too, and whatever is right, I will give you. And so verse 5, so they went. Going out again about the 6th hour and the 9th hour, he did the same. Verse 6, about the 11th hour, he goes out and he found others standing. And he said to them, why do you stand here idle all day? And they said to him, because no one has hired us. And he said to them, you go into the vineyard too. So I'm short, and I've always been short for my peer group. And so when I was an elementary school kid, I was always picked last. And it's because I'm not only short, but God did not give me any sporting athletic abilities. Okay? Just gave me nerdiness. It's just made up for nerdiness, right? So those who are picked at that at that very early morning hour, the start of the day, 6 a.m., those are the ones who were really good at the craft of hard work. And someone going out there to find workers for that day laborers at the pool, you're going to pick the ones who are the strongest, who have the most abilities, who have shown that he is good and he knows how to do this stuff. But this unusual landowner goes out 4 times, even after all of the best workers have been picked. Why does he do this? Why does he do this? And I think it's pretty obvious, right? Even without much like thinking or reading of commentaries or notes. I mean, it's like, this guy is really compassionate, right? Isn't this the first surface level understanding of this landowner? That's very unusual, because a landowner, you want to make more for your investment, right? Greater return on investment. I mean, that's the way that you make yourself more profitable, richer, and all of that. But this man is different. He has a quality of his character that is compassionate for those who are down and out, and obviously unskilled. I mean, goes out at 5 p.m. They're the ones who really don't have anything to show for. And maybe this is the part of the message that you are thinking that, of course, I mean, this matches up with everyone. Because here is highlighted the characteristic of compassion and generosity to give, even for those who don't deserve it. Even for those who would never be able to earn it. Of course, that is a big part of gospel being good news. That it's not about how you deserve that gospel of salvation and forgiveness of sin and Jesus dying and paying that penalty. You and I, we don't deserve it. We could never earn it. But God, out of His mercy that is rich and bountiful and generous, and His compassion for us, He gives us all. Okay? Gives to everyone who would believe. Now, if that's the only part of this message, then we would end right here and I would be done with the message in 9 minutes. Okay? But there is a second part of this passage that I think is really important for all of us. And so let's go ahead and take a look, starting with verse 8 through 10 now. When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, "Call the laborers and pay them their wages." Now, you would expect that if he's a fair man, he would pay those who were there from the early morning hours, right? Because they worked the burden of the day, the heat of the day, worked hard all day. Man, they're dead tired. They put in their hard days of work, 12 hours, and so pay them first so that they could go home, wash up, get some food, and rest, right? That's fair, especially if it's someone who is compassionate, right? We settle that matter. This is a compassionate owner. But he doesn't do this. It says, "Call the laborers and pay their wages, beginning with the last and up to the first. And when those hired about the 11th hour came, each of them received a denarius." This is a full day's wage. So let's suppose that the hourly wage back then was $15 an hour. Okay, so those people who got hired at 5 p.m. just work one hour. How much are they expecting? $15. And they line up. It's like, wow, this guy is pretty strange. He wants us to get paid first. Okay, I'm lining up, expecting $15, and he hands you $200. Okay, it's not exactly 12 times. Okay, don't get complicated. But you get the proportion, right? It's like, I was expecting $15. He hands me $200. That's a shocker. Right? And everyone now lining up is like, man, we hit gold today. This guy is not just compassionate. This guy is filthy rich. He's just giving away money at a rate that is 12 times what is standard, what is fair, what is right. This guy is generous. And then in verse 10, now when those hired first, these are the people who got hired from 6 a.m., worked 12 hours, they thought that they would receive more, which is natural. You and I would expect that. But each of them also received a denarius, the same pay for everyone. Now, why reverse the sequence? Because if this is a generous man who just has extra compassion and pity for those who are never picked, and so he wants to just give them a bonus and just give them the full $200 just like that, make that whole household and family very happy, he could have done that the other way, the standard way, right? Where you pay the first laborers first, and then in so doing, he is not going to set up false hopes like they all fell for. I mean, it's like, wow, this guy's generous. Well, I'm doing the math. I'm going to get what? You do the math quickly, and it's like, I'm going to get $2,400, okay, for my 12 hours of work. But he gives them all the same, 1 denarii. Could there be a purpose for this? For reversing the sequence? Now, if you think about it, there might be some other ulterior motive to this, something else that this landowner wants to communicate. Now, first of all, I think one reason for delaying this early workers is for them to see the joy. Because can you imagine expecting, let's say you took an exam, okay? Some of you are in the midst of exam mode, right? Let's say you took your first general chemistry exam, and out of 12 questions, you only got 1 right. You left all 11 blank. And you get the score back, and you get 100%. It's like, oh my gosh, right? This professor either needs to get his eyes checked or something went wrong here, right? 100%, I'm not complaining, right? And you get that smile on your face, and others see that smile. It's like, wow, what happened? What happened? Oh my gosh, I can't believe you got 100%, and you only did 1 question, right? You could share in that joy. Sometimes those flukes happen, right? You could share in that joy. I think that would be one. That would be a bonus. You get to share in the joy of seeing someone who is receiving something that they don't deserve. Unmerited favor. That is another definition of grace. Getting something that you don't deserve to get. And this kind of grace is amazing grace, receiving far more than what they could ever have imagined or hoped for or ever deserve or earn. And maybe this is what this landowner wanted these hard workers who were there from the crack of dawn to also get this bonus at seeing people rejoice. This landowner clearly saw through the eyes of compassion. I mean, isn't that true? He saw those people still standing out there, because they're waiting and waiting for someone to maybe have extra work for the day so that somehow that guy who's a father of a family could go home with a little bit of money to buy some bread. And this is a day and age back then where many people were just dirt poor. Poverty rate was sky high. And this landowner gives them the dignity to work even for a few hours to bring home this money. He has eyes of compassion, but maybe what he is seeing is something more than an empty bank account. Maybe what he is seeing is a need that is greater than just a need for 1 day's wage to buy some loaf of bread and some other clothing or other things. Maybe this landowner is seeing through the eyes of compassion something that is missing in the hearts in the hearts of these people who were hired early on. Now, this is something that if you just kind of play it out, you could understand this. I'm generalizing here, but those who are at the front of the line, who are at the top of their field, who's really good at these things, whatever that category is, they kind of look down on people who don't. Can you all think of something that you're really good at? Okay, that you're really good at. Okay. I'm really good at navigation. Okay. So I somehow God gave me, instead of athletic abilities, a compass and a GPS in my head, right, in my soul. I know you blindfold me, turn me around to twist, whatever. I open my eyes. That's west. Okay, I know it. I feel it, right? And it really helps when you have a gigantic tower to give you bearings. Okay, but I know it, and so my wife, she is so gifted and so talented in so many ways, except for this. Okay, so it's a good match. It's a good combination. And when she's like, "Oh, I'm lost. Where is west?" I'm like, "West is there. Remember, we were going south, and so on to the right is west." She's like, "I don't get it." I'm like, and then I'm patting myself on the back, right? It's like, yeah, that's right. You need me, right? And I'm feeling good because this is a field that I'm good at. And oftentimes it's like that. When you're elevating yourself, it comes at the cost of pushing someone else down or looking down on someone. And maybe this is the thing that the landowner recognized. Even as more workers are coming into his vineyard, it's like, oh, it's noon, but hey, there's some more guys. Oh, Joe, man, this landowner, I guess he's just desperate or he's just compassionate today because I never see you in the work. Oh, who are you? Oh, you're the guy who's always left behind. Looking down on others who don't have it, who can't earn it. Maybe this vineyard owner saw how proud they were. And maybe God is wanting to teach us something more than the fact that his heart is for everyone to be saved. Maybe through this story, Jesus is teaching us something through these people who just have a bad reaction to God's generosity. That maybe we are likewise having that kind of attitude in our heart, and in so revealing that our hearts are desperately lacking in love and compassion and generosity. And on receiving it, they grumbled at the master of the house, saying, "These last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat." He included these details. He is well aware of the fact that those who worked from early on worked longer and harder. And then in verse 13, but he replied to one of them, "Friend." That's a gentle, compassionate, gracious gesture. "Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Am I robbing you of the contract that we had signed and agreed? Didn't I agree with you 1 day's wages, 1 denarius at the beginning of all of this? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this last worker as I give to you." In other words, these people are not getting what they deserve, but is getting something out of who I am, my character. Verse 15, am I not allowed to do with what I choose with what belongs to me? Or do you begrudge my generosity? That is one of the character that we kind of knew already, and Jesus spells it out. Generous love for everyone. And then it says, so the last will be first, and the first last. We see their attitude. They grumbled. They grumbled at the master of the house. I think that is one of the symptoms of a lack of love in the hearts of people. You know, in this day and age of COVID, we got all kinds of symptoms to look for, right? You got fever, you got chills, body aches, all of that. You got, sore throat. This is one of the symptoms of something that Jesus is detecting that is very familiar and common to many people. And the symptom is they grumbled. This is a lack of love. They simply can't rejoice with those who are rejoicing. And I think it's because so much of their life has been lived out in accordance to the ways of this world, which is so counterintuitive to what God is trying to do in terms of God so loved the world that He gave His only Son to everyone who believes. That is so opposite. So much of our work is in terms of I need to earn it. And I need to show my lovableness, how valuable I am, and I need to work hard at it. I need to earn it, deserve it, and keep that going. And when you're in that kind of a frame of mind and your understanding of yourself and others, then it's quickly drained of joy that comes when there is mercy and grace and generosity, given and received. They often forfeit the joy of being the recipient of God's grace and mercy. And so I want to just pause here for just one quick moment. How is your heart today, these days? How is your heart these days? Is it filled with joy in seeing others who may be rejoicing because somehow, you study for the same exam, but that guy got a higher score. But you're the one who tutored him. Okay, so this is where the rubber meets the road. Would you rejoice with that guy? Or would you be like, man, this is not fair? And then grumbling. I remember hearing from one of the students that we had ministered to many, many years ago. My wife and I were ministering to a church like this in Davis, California, and she was sharing her story of how her best friend oftentimes got good news. Things went well for her. Got into a good school, got good grades, but she couldn't feel happy for her, even though they were best of friends. And what made it even worse was one day her friend got some bad news, some illness of the family member. And guess what? Instead of sharing her sorrows, she felt joy. And why? Because of envy, jealousy, that would splinter even the closest of friendships. That revealed what was in her heart. That revealed that there is no love in her heart. And likewise, I think grumbling like this, or just how you're feeling when something good happens to someone or when something bad happens to someone, how do you feel? I think this is one way that you could kind of monitor yourself. And maybe Jesus is telling this story for you to see yourself in these people who are grumbling. It's really not about you, but it's about everybody. The right E is this: everyone can receive, no matter how deserving or undeserving. It is really about the generosity and the character of God. And that is the part that this landowner wanted to convey and to give to those early picks who got to see the rejoicing. The first picks actually did get a bonus that is 12-fold more. Did you get that? Did you see that? Remember, they were multiplying. Okay, so if this guy gets 1 day's denarius, I should get 12, right? They did get a 12-fold more than what those last hires got. What did they get 12-fold more of? A relationship with this generous landowner. They spent 12 hours with this generous landowner, seeing his heart wide open, seeing the joy of being a generous landowner, giving and giving, and seeing the smile on that landowner's face. I bet you, there was no video recording of this, but if I were to make a video of this landowner in giving away all of this would have a big smile. And those in the early hours got to see that at 9 a.m., at 12 noon, at 3 p.m., and even 5 p.m. They got a front row seat to his generous and compassionate heart, something that is far more precious than that one day's wage.
以上で今週の礼拝は終わりとなります。一緒にお祈りしましょう。天の父なる神様、あなたの一人子イエス・キリストは私たちの罪を支払うために死なれました。この素晴らしい恵みを心から感謝します。私たちは自分の救いを自ら得ることはできません。そしてこの恵みはすべての人が受け取ることができます。本当にこれより良い知らせはありません。より多くの皆さんがこの神様の恵み、そしてこの神様の愛を知ることができるように祈ります。イエス様の皆によって、アーメン。来週はゴスペルシリーズの最後のお話です。ぜひ礼拝に来て、最後の頭文字 L について一緒にお話ししていきましょう。それでは皆様、いい1週間を。また来週。